Brandy Crouch was a 36-year-old from Florala, Alabama. She was married twice and had multiple children. On August 27, 2024, after an argument with her father, Brandy walked away from her father's house, then to a rest area. She was never seen again. I'm Ed Denzel, and this is Unfound. Despite Unfound's reputation of interviewing family members, and that is absolutely a true assertion, you've heard from all sorts of people on this podcast over the past 9+ years. Coworkers, neighbors, bloggers, other podcast hosts. Hey, we've even had investigators. Whoever has the most knowledge, that's who I try to get, even if it takes a while. But maybe the group that is forgotten in all this is the one that feels the pain almost as much as the families themselves. They've appeared quite a bit for such disappearances as Teresa Butler, Jamie Bowen, and much more recently with Tanya Sadecki and April Wiss. Well, with Brandy Crouch, you will get to hear from two of these people who continue to make sure she is not forgotten and that she is found, because that's what friends are for. And now a summary of the case. Brandy Crouch is not documented on the NamUs database, at least not yet. But that doesn't mean people didn't and don't care about her. In fact, Brandy had lots of friends due to her great personality. She was especially popular with the men around her area of Alabama. Brandy was a dog lover and always had multiple pets. She got married and had children, but that didn't work out. Brandy got married for a second time and had children again. Once again, her choice wasn't the best. But the bigger problem in Brandy's life grew to be drugs. Her friends tried to help without success. It got so bad that there was even a restraining order between Brandy and her father. So, on the morning of August 27th, 2024, Brandy was at her father's place. In fact, she was living there with her father's permission, despite paperwork disallowing it. There was an argument between Brandy and her stepmother. Brandy walked out carrying a bag and taking along her 2 dogs. She was seen at a local rest area where she got water for those dogs to drink. Days later, the dogs returned to the father's house. Brandy did not. She was never seen again. Due to Brandy's transient lifestyle, no one reported her missing for 2 weeks. This has obviously hampered the investigation. There's no easy way for families, friends, or maybe even enemies to watch someone descend into the pits of addiction. There are no words or actions that consistently work to rescue people. Contemplate if humans will ever get to the point of defeating addictions of all kinds through pills, therapy, or whatever else. Well, you also tried to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, would somebody abduct Brandy but not take her dogs? Number 2, why didn't her father call anyone when Brandy didn't return that day? And number 3, other than appearing on a security video, why was Brandy only seen by 2 people that day? Brandy's friends are open to multiple possibilities for her disappearance. The guests for this episode are 2 of Brandy's best friends, Amanda and Jeremy. Unfound News. After you listen to this episode, go to aetv.com. Yes, the website for the A&E channel, to see the interview I did with them a few months ago. If you don't see it, just do a search for Denzel on the site. Next, I finally made a how-to video for the new Unfound database. Please check it out on Unfound's YouTube channel. then go to the discussion group on Facebook for the link to the database. Let me know how it works for you. Finally, next week will be update episode number 22. I think I have a lot to discuss. I think. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound friends of Brandy Crouch, Amanda and Jeremy. Amanda and Jeremy, welcome to Unfound.
Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Let's just start here, and I'm going to try to give both of you an opportunity to talk about the topics that we're going to cover tonight. I will try to be as fair as possible. But first, I think the listeners need to know a little bit about both of you and how you are connected to Brandy. And we're going to let ladies go first. So, Amanda, let's just start here. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you know Brandy.
Brandy and I have been best friends for around 20 years.
Wow. Okay, so like going to school together, growing up on the same street, things like that.
Well, we didn't grow up on the same street, but we definitely went to the same schools together. We met when I think we were around 13 or 14, and we always ran in the same neighborhoods and hung out together.
Yeah. And so you maintained your friendships all through adulthood up until she disappeared?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you know her very well. And would you say that you know like the rest of her family pretty well, because that's going to be a topic here eventually? You know the rest of her family somewhat well too?
For the most part.
Okay. All right. And Jeremy, what about you? How do you know Brandy? What can you say about your friendship with Brandy?
Pretty much the same thing. Grew up together, school, 20 plus years.
Wow.
Hung out together. Same crowd. Always around her family. Pretty much relationships, stuff like that. There was a handful of us. We were just always together, always hung out. We just kept that friendship going.
Okay.
Forever.
Very good. Okay, and so I guess we then also can say, Amanda and Jeremy, you are very good friends as well.
We are.
Very good. Okay, so everybody understands the connection to all of this. Thank you both. So let's go to you, Jeremy. Now that we've let Amanda went first, I'm going to allow you to go first. Just your overall knowing Brandy for, like you said, 20 years. Just give an overview of, her family and, things you think about when you think of Brandy, such of her personality and things like that. What are some of those ideas and memories that come to you when you think about Brandy now?
Bubbly. Never met a stranger. Loved animals. She's always, willing to help somebody. And that's, I guess, she was always up for an adventure. And when we was younger, we always, that's what we always did was, go out and go to rivers and creeks and explore and, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do have to ask, you two were just friends? Was there anything romantic, or was it more like a brother-sister type of thing?
Well, when we was younger, we tried when we was very young.
Uh-huh.
And at the kind, at that point of our life, it was like, we're just better off best friends. And, we held on to that for forever, from our younger years.
Okay. Very good. What about you, Amanda? What about your, when you think about Brandy, once again, personality, but maybe some of, being you're also a woman, maybe some of the interests that she had as a woman. Maybe you could talk about her, personality and things as well.
The exact same. I mean, she's always down for the ride. Anytime we could show up at midnight and just take off riding roads. She loved the woods. She was definitely one with nature, extreme animal lover. She rescued more than most people, and she deeply cared for them. She loved her friends like family. If you needed anything, she would never think twice about helping you, even if it meant she did without. If you needed her, she was one phone call away. And most of the time, the kind of personality she had, you didn't even have to ask. You could just mention you were having it hard, and she's going to offer, what can I do?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And once again, for you, Amanda, so when you became adults, I know you went to school together and everything. Did you stay close, geographically? How often were you communicating with her over the years? Did you ever fall out of contact with her for a while and then kind of reestablish? What can you say about your adult years with her?
I moved away a couple of years, but we still maintained a friendship over the phone, even while I was gone. I won't really say there was any kind of break in the friendship, even throughout the years. I mean, there's, of course, life gets in the way, and I think the longest time we ever went without speaking to each other was about 6 months.
Okay. All right, so over 20 years, 6 months really isn't that long, maybe not unusual. Of course, people get to be adults. You have, jobs, you have other relationships and things. Maybe that's not so unusual. Going back to you, Jeremy, maybe kind of along the same lines, but being that you did know her, I know I've kind of already asked you about this, but I'm going to maybe ask you about it again just because it's going to be a topic. Did you have a lot of interaction over the years with Brandy's, father, who was one of the last people to see her, and her mother? Did you know them very well? Were you on a first name basis with them? What can you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, growing up, we was young, we were super young, and there was a handful of us boys, at the age of, 14, 15, that we would all hang out at her parents' house, and jump on the trampoline and go play in the fields behind her house, clay pits, and she was, dating somebody, and we would all just hang out, and friends, and we become really good friends of the family. And then as we got older, some of the friends, grew up and had their own life, but
right.
For the most part, me, I always communicated with her mom and dad, check on them, stuff like that. So, yeah, I was, up until, everything happened and transpired, with her dad recently passing away, I always had something to do with the family.
Okay. Would you say that growing up, that you had a positive view of her parents? Positive view, you like them, or what'd you think about them?
Yeah. As any troubled teen, I wouldn't say troubled, but as a rebellious teen like we was, because we was young and just wanting to do things. She had her issues with her, with her parents,
okay,
just as anybody would, at a young age.
Okay. Amanda, back to you. Maybe I should also ask you about this. What about brothers and sisters? Does she have siblings, half siblings? What can you say about that topic?
She does have siblings on both sides, half siblings from her mom and her dad. Brandy was born later in life for both of them, so her siblings were more like aunts and uncles to her.
Oh.
She was the youngest.
Okay. So she was the baby of the family and kind of isolated age-wise.
Right.
Okay.
I'd say what her mom's what, in her 80s now? Late 70s? 80s right now? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Right.
So she was more or less like a surprise baby. They had already each raised their own set of kids and then, got together and had her.
Wow. Okay. All right. And so she had these brothers. Did you, being that they were so much older, did either of you know those older siblings very well? Did they know who you two were? What can you say about that?
I did not know them. She talked to one brother that was a lot older than us a couple of times on the phone around me, but I did not have a relationship with any of her siblings.
Okay. And the same way with you, Jeremy?
I'd say the same. Never really, I met them a few times. They'd come up she had some family that lived down in South Florida, something like that. And they would come up for holidays and stuff like that. And, I'd go over and, hang out and all that, and met them, but never really, never went beyond that. Once they would leave, really wouldn't hear much about them or see them or anything like that.
Right, and it's tough, of course, if they're that much older, and the listeners, I think, maybe already know that I'm kind of in the same situation where my brothers and my sister, on average, about 20 years older than I am, so I can kind of relate to what both of you are saying here in the situation that that Brandy was in, certainly, and certainly my friends know my brothers and my sister, but of course, my friends don't know me, and they kind of know them, but that's about it. Okay. What about relationships? Boyfriends, of course, we know she had some children that we'll eventually talk about in relation to this disappearance. But, Amanda, maybe what can you say about that? Her relationships, then eventually her having the children that she did.
Well, she was married to one man that she had 2 children with. They got together pretty young. We were pretty young when we had our first children. And they were married for a few years, and it ended. And then she did date for a little while, and then she ended up marrying another man, and she had her twins with him.
Okay. And are those the children that were there the day she was last seen?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
The twins. Just the twins.
Just the twins. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So had children. Like I said, we're going to get a little deeper into that a little bit later. We have to remember she was in her 30s when she went missing. Over to you, Jeremy. Did you know these guys that she was married to? Did you have a decent opinion? We don't have to get into their names or anything, but decent guys, not the best guys for as guy to guy. What'd you think?
Just starting out. Again, I was around for just about everything.
Yeah.
Because we become like best friends, and eventually more like brother and sister. And
right.
So she stayed in my business with my relationships, and I stayed in her business with hers. And we would all voice our opinion.
Yeah.
Like every relationship has their ups and downs. She was married at a young age.
Yeah.
And then that lasted for say 2 years, Amanda, 3 years, something like that. If that. And then she.
I think you need to just be honest. What he's looking for is us to say we don't like him. We don't like him, Mr. Ed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to try. I don't, because once again, the listeners know I don't know any of these people, and to set this up, I think there are a variety of ideas that we could be open to regarding her disappearance. So we always have to look at the men in women's lives when women disappear, like it seems. Like it seems Brandy did. We're going to keep their names out of it, but we can certainly are free to talk about our relationships and how those relationships were going. And so that's why I have to ask you this, and I appreciate you being honest about it. See, you didn't have the highest opinions of these guys. We'll just, we can keep it PG here. You didn't have the highest opinions.
No.
Okay.
Not. I'd say. And Amanda probably have different opinion out on this, but I'd say the first one, in the beginning and all that, really didn't care for that one. But as everything transpired and people get older, things change. But definitely the second one still holds a place in my heart. How I feel in the beginning is still really how I feel now. So.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say it's in my heart, but, it's just being nice.
All right, Jeremy, I got you. Thank you for being honest about that. Thank you.
Is it my turn?
It is your turn. Go ahead. Yes, please.
All right. Okay.
Please.
So we're keeping it PG. Okay.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, this is a PG. This is a PG podcast. We got to keep it PG, please.
Okay. The first one was a piece of crap, and the second one was an even bigger piece of crap. They were both abusive. I'll say the first one cheated. He was abusive. He was controlling. He was jealous and did not want the divorce, but she did. because he was so awful to her. And then he fought her in court to take her children because she got into a new relationship. That's the controlling part. Then tried to pretend like he didn't want her. And the second one came, and he was trying to be nice in the beginning and quiet and meek like a mouse, like somebody she needed to help and somebody she needed to save. And he turned out to be the most abusive, lying, abandoning, wrong person who was also doing drugs, and that's what got her started.
Okay.
Trying drugs.
Okay. If I can ask you once again, Amanda, you're a woman. What do you think it was about these guys that drew, your very, very good friend, maybe best friend, Brandy, to these guys? Any insight into that as a woman?
I think the first one, she was so young that goes into that young puppy love that she needed someone because she had a very toxic relationship with her parents, and that was who she reached out to, and he probably acted more like the, Prince Charming that wanted to save her. And so that's how that one happened. And then the second one, it was definitely the sob story of nobody loves me, nobody likes me, I have nobody. And of course, here's Brandy going, I'll help you, I'll save you. And that's how that started. I remember asking her on their first date when I met him, he was so off to me, and he seemed so weird. And you've got this beautiful, Brandy is absolutely beautiful, could have anybody she wants, and he looks like an ugly duckling is what I called him. Definitely not what you would expect her to walk in with. I mean, he's just not even built in stature, what you would think. He has no masculinity to him at all. He's small, and he has a small voice. And I remember asking her that night on their very first date, we were going out to the bar, and I said, this is just temporary, right? And she said, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Then they ended up getting married. So I think it was she had to be there for him because nobody else in the world was.
I see. Would you say, going to Jeremy, would you say that Amanda's rundown there the last couple of minutes, would you say it's pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's spot on.
Okay. All right. So just bad taste in men because she's trying to save these men, maybe feel sorry for them, things along those lines, and just too big of a heart. And sometimes when it comes to dating and relationships, serious relationships and marriage, maybe you have to be a little more calculating and not go so much with your heart sometimes. Easy for me to talk. I've been single most of my life and single at 55, like I'm now, as the listeners know. Jeremy, what about work? We're going to get to, as the listeners heard about drugs and things, we're going to touch upon that in a moment. What about work? What you do for your work, jobs, things like that through 20s into her 30s?
Brandy or me?
Brandy. Great.
Okay. Brandy, I say, she's, just like any young teenage or early teen 20 girl, she dabbled in like the waitress and restaurants and stuff like that. I think really, and then she got older. She got into when she actually had to work with her, because her second marriage, that was off and on all the time. She got into like shutdowns, traveling, doing shutdowns with some people. But I think pretty much that's extent of her work life is, young restaurants, waitressing, stuff like that, cleaning condos, stuff like that. And then in her, really her last part of her work era was, I do believe she was, in the shutdown industry.
Okay. Jeremy, I'll stay with you. Do you remember the first time that you maybe thought, I think that Brandy's doing some things she shouldn't be doing, like doing drugs, addiction? Do you remember the first time that you thought that, noticed that? What can you say?
Yeah, there's a few, I don't know exactly, I can't really pinpoint because, a lot's gone on in the past, but I do remember, can't remember exactly when, but I do, it was with the last, her last marriage. And then it got pretty, I really honestly think that the abuse and the trauma that he put her through, I think she was dabbling in it lightly. Mm-hmm. And then she got hooked up with somebody else. I believe that she met doing shutdowns or something like that really got her kind of hooked into it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And me and that old boy had a little bit of words one time. Yeah. Down at her daddy's. But, I always tried to be I'd say the protector, like the big brother. Okay. And sometimes it would push her away, and she would do the same, with my relationships. And we would go, we'd go a couple months without really talking, and then, pick up really like, we never, nothing ever happened. Mm-hmm. And I said something to her, and I kind of, just like anybody else would. When picking on her, she was kind of starting her addiction lifestyle. And it was always, I'm okay. And what she knew, I knew better, And I just never turned my back on her as a friend, even though I knew she was doing wrong and had an addiction. I never turned my back on her. Her and my family, my mother and father was really, it was pretty close. And, she'd always come out here and see my mom, when I was at work or gone or whatever, and, just hang out with my mom when she was alive. And, but we just never turned our back on her. She always had a place here. She always had an ear to listen to. If she wanted to, talk about anything, it was always there for her.
Amanda, same question. Do you remember the first time you thought, you know what, I think that she's getting in over her head with this drug stuff? You noticed her acting weird. Do you remember? You don't have to remember necessarily an exact date or anything, but just maybe an incident that comes to mind.
When I first started talking to her about how far off I thought she was getting from herself was about 6 years ago. Huh. It kind of escalated, but I'll be honest with you, it really snuck up on you. You know what I mean? Like, what I mean is when I really started paying attention, it was like night and day. One Wednesday, she was mostly her, but you could kind of tell something was a little different. And then, the next thing you know, she's knee-deep already, and you just figured it out. How far off she was in it. So I would say really when I started really focusing and noticing, she was starting to lose bits of herself was about 6 years ago.
Okay. So we're talking about 2019, like before COVID hit.
I think so. Okay. For me. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever talk to her about it?
Pretty much seen it at the same time,
Right.
Okay. Maybe a few months in between me and Amanda, but I think, we all noticed it really around the same time.
Okay. Amanda, did you ever try to talk to her? What'd she say to you? Jeremy's kind of already passed along, kind of what she said to him. What'd she say to you?
We talked about it several times. I went from begging her to being angry with her because you go from being this great, beautiful, vivacious, hard female that ain't scared of anything or anybody and would fight at the drop of a hat to, someone who looks very similar to a skeleton, 80 pounds soaking wet, and is talking nonsense. I talked to her several times, and I begged her to let's get you help, let's put you where you need to be, to leave all these people alone. Because she had got so far into that life, we weren't even around the same people anymore. I don't know more than half the people she had in her life. They certainly weren't helping her. She kept telling me, yes, I want to get help. Yes, I want to go back to being me. I'm so sorry. I didn't even know I was this bad off. I didn't even know I was taking something this bad. I thought it was something else, but now I need this bad stuff. She had to go through withdrawals a couple of times, and it didn't stick. And then we were talking about, sending her to a rehab, and she would say she wanted that, but then end up, not going. And then I got angry with her because You know, how can you throw away such a beautiful life and a beautiful person for this? You can't be happy doing this. And she always maintained she wanted help. She always maintained she didn't want to live like this. She didn't want to be in any kind of addiction. She wanted to be herself. She wanted to be a great mom, and she just didn't know how to get a hold of it.
What was her drugs of choice, Amanda?
She didn't go into detail completely. The only thing she told me was that it was something around fentanyl.
Wow. Okay.
She told me one time it was a horse tranquilizer.
Oh,
she did mention that.
Wow.
She did mention that as well.
I can remember, which I'm in the bail bond industry. I've been a bail bondsman for close to 10 years. So, you know, I'm not no stranger to, you know, the system and, you know, how stuff like that works. You know, I'm around it every day, you know. So I remember one time, I cannot remember if it was Amanda, was it you, or it might have been her dad, he called me and said, you know, hey, I ain't talked to her in a little while, a couple of days. She might be over here, you know, doing this or this, you know. And so I got out and left my office and went knocking on some doors and ended up finding her at a local house here in town, and pulled up, and she walks out and she's wearing this, it was during COVID. She had this mask over her face, like a bandana.
Okay.
And she went talking to me, and I just pulled it down, and she just had all these sores on her face. And I just immediately, you know, went to tearing into her. You know, what are you doing? This is not you. You know, are these people feeding you this? You know, and I was just so mad at them and where she was. And I told her, I said, well, I'm going to tell you like this. I'm going to give you the opportunity to get in your car and go back to your daddy's. And if I come back or I call your daddy and you're not down there, well, I'm going to come back and I'm going to take you myself. You know, and that was a lot of stuff that went on like that, is I would kind of like bail her out of situations like that and try to get her back on the right path. But Brandy would do what Brandy wanted to do. She would listen to us, but she would always stray away and do what she wanted to do.
Okay. Jeremy, what do you know? This because I think this is going to play a prominent role in analyzing this disappearance a little later. What do you know about this restraining order that she had, seemingly with her father and his new wife, or maybe they've been married for years? Let's just call her stepmother. You know, at the time of Brandy's disappearance, do you know any specifics on that and how that popped up? And of course, Amanda, I'll ask you as well, but Jeremy, I'll start with you first.
Well, so she, you know, had a few instances where she ended up going to jail for domestic violence. And the first time she went to jail for domestic violence, her dad actually called me to bond her out, and I bonded her out. And it was later on down the road, they had some more issues, and she ended up going back to jail again for, I do believe, another domestic violence issue with her dad. And I believe while she was in jail that time that, you know, he had got a protection order against her. And at this time, this was last year, 24, my mother had passed away July 7th of last year. And she actually passed away while Brandy was in jail. And, you know, Brandy was calling me from the jail, begging me to get her out. And I was like, you know, I never talked to her. I didn't want to. It was kind of like a tough love thing, you know.
Yeah.
I knew where she was, and I knew she was going to be sober. So I left her in there. If somebody else wanted to get her out, that's fine. But Jeremy wasn't. Not until, you know, that I knew that she was ready, you know, sober, you know, putting some weight on. And when my mother passed away, you know, I felt kind of bad because my mother passed away and Brandy wasn't out to, you know, tell my mom goodbye. So, you know, that kind of bothered me a lot. And so I ended up sending somebody over there that works with me to bond her out and talk to her. You know, and they did say that she is doing better. You know, she's a lot different than what she was when she first got brought in. You know, she's not talking out of her head. And I said, okay, cool. You know, we can give this a whirl. You know, we can try to we can get her out and see what transpires. So, she got out, and she knew she had that protection order that her dad and stepmom had put against her, and she knew, she told me, hey, I can't go over there, I can't see the kids, blah, blah, blah. But, on the other hand, her dad would allow her back out there to see the kids, knowing that she wasn't supposed to be out there because he put the order on her. And they would use that. I felt like he would use that, against her, that, she would come out there, they'd get in a fuss, and he would threaten, you're not supposed to be out here, I'll call the law, blah, 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 so on and so on. But I felt like he used that against her, in the long run, to get her to come out, see the kids, and then, they would have some issues, and, he would threaten to call the law because, he knew that if they come out there, that she would go to jail.
Amanda, what is your insight into this? The domestic violence. What do you think the nature of this was? Was this a situation where her father was trying to be a good dad and these problems popped up, or is it your impression that he was a bad dad and this all popped up? Your best impressions of these problems that they had?
Well, I think at the end of every single day, they're all toxic towards each other. It's kind of like you're trying to be a close family, but at the end of the day, everybody is toxic. Mm-hmm. They didn't communicate well. The way they, would go about things when they get upset is straight to arguments and bullying and, saying not nice things. They were always constantly fighting just about. And I think he had it in his head, that he was a good dad, but I think from others' opinions, in my opinion, he's not, or he wasn't a very good dad at all. And I agree with Jeremy. They love to hold things over her head, and when they had the domestic violence charges going on, they made it to where she couldn't come back to the house, so she had to stay in other places, but they got to keep the kids. So they had this control over her, like, if you don't do what we say and be nice like we want you to, then you won't get to see the kids. But we'll bring the kids to see you, and you can come here and see the kids, but you better act right, or you'll also go to jail, So I agree with Jeremy about that.
Mm-hmm. So the domestic violence charges, and she was the one that would get in trouble. Did the father ever go to jail for any of this, or was it always Brandy that was the one who had to leave? I mean,
it was always Brandy. It was them against her every time.
Okay. Did you talk to her about? You two talked to? Maybe I'll go back to Jeremy on this. You ever talked to her about this, and did she realize that her father was manipulating her, or what?
Yeah, she would tell me, everything that would go on between her and her dad. But at the end of the day, Brandy loved him. Yeah. Brandy loved her kids. Yeah. So she would always go around and have something to do with the kids. Brandy was a lot of things, but Brandy was not a bad mother. Okay. She always would make time for her kids. She would always call and talk to them, and would bend over backwards to do what she had to do for her kids.
Okay. All right, so you have this complex situation, people filing restraining orders, and then they don't go by the restraining orders, and the father lets her come back over, and it seems uses it against her, maybe blackmails her, extorts her, kind of in all of this, very manipulative, and this was kind of what was going on at the time of Brandy's disappearance. One more thing I have to ask about, and I'll go to you, Amanda. It had to do, you told me that she was having some car and phone problems before she went missing. What can you say about both of those?
Well, I wasn't there, but the rumor is her phone was broken by someone she was hanging out with that got into an argument with her and was chasing her to cause her physical harm. And she dropped her phone out in the field or something, and it got broken that way. So she was actually without her phone at the time. And the car issues is the car had a bad battery. To my knowledge, it had to be jumped off to be crunk. And so at the time, she just took off, without having to, I guess, get the car jumped off.
Okay. Would you say these were common problems for, of course, as the listeners, we talk a lot about people with addictions, losing phones, destroying phones, having multiple phones. Would you say all of this was very common for Brandy once she started having this drug issue? Or would you say what was going on in August of 2024 was unique?
Well, to my knowledge, she kept a phone. So I don't think she was one to go through a bunch of phones, except a few times she did change her phone and phone number.
Okay. What about you, Jeremy? Your impression of her phone and car problems, just the way you knew her, car problems and phone problems, unique, or was this just something that it all came together there in August of last year?
I think I'd be with Amanda on that. She'd keep a phone, but she went through a few different numbers. And car problem, yeah, she had a car problem, but her dad would let her use his vehicle. She was on his truck a lot. And also her mom's car. She wasn't really, I'd say, never without a way of going, maybe here or there, but for the most part, she would, she needed to go somewhere, needed to do this or do something for the kids. She would either borrow her dad's car, or she was at her mom's, she would borrow her mom's car.
Okay. How much walking do you remember her doing? Doing a lot of walking to get places, or not?
No, not really. No.
Not a lot.
No.
Okay.
Too hot here in South Alabama in August.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. All right. So we've covered these complex issues going on in her life at the time of her disappearance. We have an addiction that she maybe started in 2019. We have this problem mainly with her father, but we haven't talked about her mother. Maybe we can do that before I get into these specific questions. Amanda, what can you say about Brandy's mother? Just the relationship that she had with her mother.
Well, she was there for her when she needed her. I don't think she ever told Brandy she couldn't come there, but at the same time, they still didn't have this great relationship. They fought a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same issues with the father or different issues?
Yeah, I think it was just all toxic. Oh. I think it was just the environment.
Okay. Jeremy, your insight, same kind of thing. Your impression is Amanda's. Did you know her mother very well? Did you understand why she and her mother also didn't get along very well?
Yeah, same thing. They wouldn't get along, but on the same page. She wouldn't tell her no. If Brandy needed a place to stay, she would let her stay there. Even though they didn't have the best relationship, she had her, a place to lay her head, and same thing with her dad. She had a place to lay her head.
Okay. Just some specific questions before we actually get to the disappearance for both of you. How often were you seeing and talking to Brandy come August of 2024? We'll just start there. Amanda, how often were you seeing or talking to her? And maybe you can even talk about the last time you saw her before she went missing.
We would talk pretty regularly, at least every other week. We were messaging each other. We didn't see a lot of each other because I had recently had a baby.
Wow.
So my life was, pretty chaotic and pretty hectic. And also, her life was, in addiction. So it stayed pretty chaotic. So we didn't make a lot of time to actually see each other a lot, except she did come over one night when my baby was a couple of months old. But she didn't show up until really late. It was probably around 11:30 at night when she texted me and told me she was at my house. And so I got out of bed and opened the door, and she she stayed until a little after midnight, and then she left.
Okay. And once again, how long was that before she went missing?
I'm not sure. Okay. I'd have to.
That's fine. That's
maybe a couple weeks.
All right, totally fine. Jeremy, same question. Last time you saw her, spoke to her before she went missing.
I would speak to her pretty regular, about like Amanda, every other week. And it would be, she would text me or call me checking on how my mom, because my mother was getting ill. And, she would, text me or call about mom, and she'd let me, she'd ask if mom was at home, she was going to come by and see her, and I'd be at work. And I'd say, yeah, she's home, go by and see her. Physically see her, I want to say maybe it was a while, because me and my life, my lifestyle, I didn't physically see her as often as I wanted to, just because of how the people she hung with and all that. I think a lot of it, though, was I didn't really want to. I didn't want to see her in that shape. I didn't want to see her, skin and bones and all that. But my mother and father would see her way more frequent than I have leading up to the, August. But I'd say about a year, honestly.
Wow. Okay.
And she was here at my house. She had called me one night, and she said, "Hey, are you home?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "Hey, I need to, do you mind if I come out there and get a shower and rest my head?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I don't care, And she'd got a shower, and I had to lay down. I told her, I got to get up and go to work in the morning. And I woke up about 2 o'clock, and she had done, she's gone. So she wouldn't ever stay anywhere long enough.
Okay.
She was in and out. But talking-wise to her, I talked to her pretty frequent, all the way up to everything happening.
All right.
The last time I talked to her was on Messenger on August 24th.
All right, so just a few days before the date that seemingly is accepted as her disappearance date of the 27th, just 3 days before that.
Right.
And I want to say that I talked to her, I'm looking right now at my messages, August 14th. So that'll be on the hit and miss of about 2 weeks. We talk, every other week. So August 14th at 2:05 p.m., 2024 is when I spoke to her. She said that she was at her mom's.
Okay. Let's move on to this. Just your general impressions for 2024. Were things getting better in Brandy's life, or were things getting worse in Brandy's life during the course of 2024? Jeremy, I'll ask you first.
I think 2024 was a rough patch for her, with the, being in jail for, Amanda, what was she in jail, about 2 months?
Right.
She was in jail for 2 months, and then got her out, and I talked to her once she was out. She was doing good. Other people have seen her in person, and she was, they say she was doing good, had weight on her, and it was the Brandy that everybody, that knew, she was doing good. But I'd say leading up to the August 24th, I don't know when she started going back, or I don't even know if, really, honestly, if she was doing anything around that time. My messages with her that month, leading up to that, she would, because I'd straight out ask her, "Hey, are you sober? How are you doing? Are you staying straight?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm doing good." And then she would fill me in on, everything else going on, but, she would make sure that I knew that she was sober.
Okay. Amanda, what was your impressions of 2024 for Brandy, even though, once again, you weren't seeing her much, but talking to her, a bad year, she's in jail. Your impression?
I would agree with the rough patch between the jail and then they ended up taking her custody of the kids and because of the arrest and giving her custody over to her dad and stepmom. That she sent me a message. That was one of the things we last talked about on the 24th of August before she went missing, was how devastated she was over all this, that, they're an extremely toxic couple, and yet, and that the fact that her dad was one of the ones that would buy the drugs for her, and yet that's who Child Services gave her custody to, and she was extremely upset because she could no longer just leave with the kids. And so I would say things went from bad to worse right before her disappearance.
Okay. All right. And for both of you, how concerned were you for her in August of 2024? Did something seem like bad was about to happen, or did it seem like just more of the same was going to continue?
Just talking to her, once, she got out of jail, I talked to her a handful of times, and, nothing made me believe that she was doing anything bad or going back down that road. Because again, I'd ask her. That'd be one of the first things our conversation would start with, would be, how are you doing? Are you sober? Are you staying straight? And she would always tell me yes. That doesn't mean she was, because Brandy knew how I was. She could have been lying to me.
Right.
But, I just took it with a grain of salt, and if she would always text me wanting, hey, you got $20, you got $25 I can have. I'm broke down on the side of the road, or I ran out of gas, or I need gas money to take the kids to school, or this or that, and I would always, cash app her $20, $25, even though I knew that probably it wasn't that, but still I didn't want, what if it was true? What if she really needed it? So
okay.
A lot of times it was, it was about that, but never once believed that really she was going down the same path she was before jail.
What about you, Amanda?
I knew she wasn't, her fully, but there wasn't anything she said or done that would lead me to believe that it was going, to a worse part situation for her. Same thing with the money. Every now and then she would ask to borrow a little money, but she always paid it back. When she told me she would pay me back, there wasn't ever a time that I was just giving her money and she wasn't giving it back.
Okay. Let's move up to that day. It's going to be not difficult, but a little different how we do this, because it wasn't realized that she was missing for a while, but we'll just start here. For you, Amanda, what is, not saying we necessarily believe this or anything, but what is the official story about how she went missing that day?
So I didn't find out she was actually missing for 2 weeks after she supposedly went missing on that day of the 27th of August. When I saw Jeremy's Facebook post that she was missing, I turned around and immediately called her dad. He and I talked a lot about Brandy while she was in jail, if she was out, if he was unhappy, if they had a fight. And I called him and I asked him, was Brandy missing? And he said yes. And I asked him, why didn't he call me? And he said, well, I thought she'd be back by now. And I said, well, what happened? Where has she gone? And he said, I don't know. We got into a fight. She attacked Tanya, or, well, I should say, she attacked her stepmom. And he said that all her stepmom did was come into the kitchen and tell Brandy she didn't have time to make breakfast for the kids. They didn't have time to eat. They had to get on the school bus and go to school. because they couldn't drive them that morning, and he said Brandy just attacked, just started verbally screaming, arguing, causing a ruckus, is how he put it, and that Tanya, her stepmom, somehow got, upset and then injured, and that it was all Brandy's fault, and he was tired of dealing with her, and so they told her she had to get out, and that she was still screaming and causing a big fight and a fuss, but eventually she left, and he didn't know where she went or when she would be back. And he said that he thought she was going to her mom's house because she was supposed to be going to stay there, because she wasn't technically supposed to be at his house because they put the restraining order on her. And so he had called her mom, and her mom said that she never made it there.
Okay, so they get in a fight. She gets all ticked off. She puts maybe a few things together, takes off, and takes her dogs, right? Takes her dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said the dogs left walking with her.
Okay. Now, Jeremy, as Amanda just stated, she saw the post that you made. How did you find out that she was missing? How do you view all of this? Once again, the public story for, her disappearance.
I do believe, now it's my mind is here recently. Everything runs together. But I do believe that her mother reached out to me. Amanda, am I correct about that?
Yeah, when I
okay,
called you,
yeah.
You said
okay,
her mom
yeah.
called you.
So her mother had reached out to me and asked, have I heard anything from Brandy? And I said, no. Why? What's going on? No thought in my mind that anything was going on or happening or that she was missing. And her mother begins to tell me that she's been missing for 2 weeks. Well,
wow.
That's odd to me, very odd. And I told her mother, I said, well, you need to call the sheriff's department, call the police, and do a missing person report. Because this is not right. I then immediately went to Brandy's Facebook and messaged her, and I was like, hey, didn't hear nothing from her. Hour later, I said, hey, I need to know that you're okay. What's going on? Your mother's trying to get up with you. Still nothing. And then it just went from there. And then I made a Facebook post that, her mother and dad, I do believe I put her mother's number on Facebook and her dad's number, and I said something along the lines of, she's been no contact for 2 weeks. If anybody knows where she's at, tell her to call her parents. Her parents are worried. And then everything went from there.
Okay. All right, so 2 weeks, she takes off. Father thinks she went to her mother's, seemingly never followed up on that, never called the ex-wife or anything seemingly, correct?
Can I add to that?
Go ahead, please.
So with the dad, when I was talking to him, and this came out later. So with the dad, when I was talking to him, he told me that he waited 3 days over the weekend when he called her mom because he couldn't find her mom's new phone number. So it took him 3 days to get her number, and he called her to find out if Brandy was okay after their argument. Now we can fast forward to when I finally talked to her mom. At that point, she had been missing for 2 weeks. So I called her mom, and I said, so I just talked to Brandy's dad, and he told me, XYZ, he called you after 3 days, and Brandy's mom automatically called him a liar right then and said, no, he didn't call me for 2 weeks.
Okay.
It wasn't 3 days. He waited for over 2 weeks before he called to ask about Brandy, and Brandy had never made it there when she was supposed to come there that day or the next day or that weekend.
Okay.
And I even found that odd, and I even made me and a guy that works together, me and him went down to her dad's in person and talk to him, just because I'm more of the type that I want to ask questions, and I want to see how your response is in person, not over a phone. I want to see how your body reacts to my questions, how your facial expressions and stuff like that. And, I went down there and asked, just told him to fill me in on everything, what happened, so on. And it was, a pretty consistent story that, from what, he told Amanda and everything.
Okay.
And then we left.
The mother was not concerned. She hadn't heard. I realized they had a contentious relationship. She wasn't bothered that she hadn't heard from her in 2 weeks, and I guess neither of you were concerned that you hadn't heard from Brandy in 2 weeks.
Well, once my concern started is Brandy would never not answer me. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure the same with Amanda. It don't matter what time, how long if we went a couple weeks without speaking. If I message her and say, hey, I'm going to get a what's up back, or what are you doing, or something like that. But that's whenever I didn't get no response at all, in a day or two, I knew something was wrong.
Okay.
That's why it makes no sense, and it hasn't made any sense from the beginning of all of this that her dad would wait 2 weeks. Brandy has not went 2 days without calling her kids or seeing them, and he didn't find it odd that she was nowhere for 2 weeks or in contact with them for 2 weeks. It's been strange from the beginning.
Okay.
And he would call me when they had a fight, or he would call me when she left in the middle of the night, or he would call me when she was in jail. He called me the day she got out to tell me everything. And you don't call me to tell me she's missing.
Same. He would do the same with me. He would call and be like, have you seen Brandy? Haven't heard from her, or, I don't know if she's okay. And then normally I would be able to reach out to her, speak to her, and let him know, hey, yeah, she's okay. She said she'll reach out to you. But this time was different. He never reached out to me either.
Okay. Have you, in the last year, of course, this is we're doing this interview, by the way, for everybody on December 15th of 2025. Have you ever, you obviously you're being interviewed for this episode. You're very involved in trying to figure out what happened to her. Have you encountered anybody who talked to or saw Brandy after August 27th until it was realized that she was missing? Anybody?
No.
Okay.
She's a complete ghost.
Okay.
She's not been seen after she was at the rest area on video.
Okay.
Per the video.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know.
And we're going to get into this rest area. We're going to have to do a long talk about that. So, but finally, 2 weeks later, approximately, it is realized. And what gets done at that time? Who files the missing persons report? What goes on from there? 2 weeks after this, so let's say around September 10th or whenever it was. What does get done when, after you post something, Jeremy, of course, Amanda sees it, what is done right at that time?
We start questioning. We start sending messages to Brandy. Then we start reaching out, talking to Mom, talking to Dad. Mom files a police report, so on.
Mm-hmm. Amanda, how about you? Of course, you find out from Jeremy. Maybe you talk to him. Maybe you talk to some of her other friends. Who, to your knowledge, Amanda, who does file a missing persons report?
Her mom told her dad that he needed to go file the missing persons report because that's in the county that she disappeared from. She lives in a different county. She was living at his house when she left, and so it was him, her dad, that filed the initial report.
I thought it was her.
No.
Okay. All right, where it was, as best as you can tell for both of you, being that the father was the last person to see her, of course we have the stepmother, we have to also remember the children are there, and we're going to come back to that eventually. Would you say that the father was forthcoming? Did he, tell the same story? Was he evasive with the police? Do we have any knowledge of any of that?
As far as my understanding, he was interviewed, and I believe that the stepmom was also interviewed, and I do believe they, become, no person of interest of being any involvement. To my knowledge, I might be wrong. Amanda might be able to help answer this one better, because there's been so much said and so much has been going on since her disappearance. I do believe that, and I might be wrong about this, that maybe he did took a lie detector test.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. Amanda might be able to answer that better. I might be wrong, but I do know there was a few individuals that did take the lie detector test, as there was a few individuals that denied to take a lie detector test.
Okay.
As far as what the policeman told me was that everybody at the time was a suspect and would remain so. They did polygraph her dad, and to my knowledge, the sheriff told me that he passed his polygraph, but they did not give the stepmom a polygraph.
Okay. What about searches that were done? We're going to get into this rest area eventually, but searches done at the time? Take dogs out, drones, anything to look around that area for it. Being that you walked off, anything done along those lines?
Amanda will be able to give you more insight on that. She talked to more, and we both talked to investigators different times, so we both got, per se, different information than what the other person got. But my knowledge, Amanda will be able to answer this too probably, is do believe they did do a search of the rest area and the woods around it, and they did take dogs, searching the rest area and her scent, stuff like that.
All right.
So regarding, of course, she's missing. She goes walking off. Are the areas around the house and elsewhere searched?
To my knowledge, they did do a ground search. We don't have a lot of knowledge on the searches. We were not permitted to know where they were searching, when they were searching, who was searching.
You did not take part in those searches. That's not a criticism, but you were not allowed to, or just too busy, or.
I don't think we wasn't told when they was, or or anything like that. We wasn't in the loop on when the searches took place, or when they, or how they did any of that.
Okay. And we did offer. We offered to be there. We offered to show up. We had a large group of people reach out and agreed to also be a part of the search and help in any way that they could. And we let the police know that. I sat down in a meeting with them and let them know that again, that we were ready to go. If all they had to do was call and let us know, we would be happy to be involved in any searches for her, and we never received any calls.
All right, let's move on now, and we're going to get to these dogs and the kids in a little bit. Right now, where we need to go for the rest of the case is this rest area. To your ball, either of you, I don't know who I need to ask about this pointedly, but how was it even discovered that this rest area, a couple miles away from where she was staying with her dad, living with her father and stepmother and kids, how did this rest area even become a part of this? Did somebody working there come forward? Did the police go there because they knew there was a camera there? Do either of you know how it even became a part of the investigation?
I do.
Go ahead.
The rest area worker that was on duty that day, I know that person personally.
Wow.
But the rest area worker did not put two and two together until I started posting on my Facebook that she was missing with her picture, and then the rest area worker realized that they had seen.
Excuse me? Hello? Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Hello, I lost you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Jeremy, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I lost you. You were talking, and then all of a sudden, it went Stop talking. So we'll just keep going. That's no problem. Don't worry about it. So you say you know this arrest area person personally, and please continue.
And when I started posting on my Facebook that Brandy was missing with her photo, the person that I know personally that works there realized, hey, I recognize this girl, and that rest area worker got in touch with me and let me know that they had seen Brandy that day, and they had already contacted, and the sheriff's department was on their way then to come and view the footage.
Wow. Okay. And is it accurate when I said that it's about a couple miles away?
I think I mapped it out. It was on highway. If you take the road, it's 2.03 miles.
Wow. All right. So almost exactly 2 miles. Very good. Have either of you seen the video, or have you just seen a screenshot of it? How much have you seen of this?
We were only allowed to see the picture that they put out to the public. I asked the investigators to let me view the footage while I was inside of the police station, and I would give them my phone if they would just let me see the actual footage, and they refused.
Okay. Did you get to talk to, being that you knew this worker personally, did the worker get to see the video?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So, as best as you know, for either of you, what does the video show, and what does this worker there describe what was going on with Brandy being there? What is the description of Brandy being there? She's with her dogs. What goes on?
Well, I can't speak to the video, but what was described to me was Brandy was very run down by the time she made it to the rest area. It was extremely hot that day here in Alabama. You could describe it as 100 degrees in the shade.
Wow.
The wind probably felt like a blowtorch. So she was extremely run down. She was out of energy. She did say she had an injury to her right leg that was bleeding.
Wow.
She observed her without any shoes on. So I could imagine what walking on the pavement must have felt like that day.
Yeah.
So basically she came in very tired, hot, sweaty, and very thirsty.
And in addition, she had her dogs with you. You told me, I think in a prior conversation, she was trying to get water for her dogs.
Right. She went into the bathroom, and she was attempting to get the dogs some water because they were also extremely hot. And so the rest area worker went inside and got her some cold water in the water bottles and brought them to her. And when she had drank those, she filled them up. She said she went into the bathroom and filled them up again. And she said she made a mess in the bathroom with the water, trying to get it into the water. And it's how she described her is how I knew for 100% it was exactly her. She apologized to her for making such a mess and promised to clean it up. And when the rest area worker told her, "That's okay, honey, don't worry about it. You're hot and tired. Just sit down and rest," Brandy said, "No, ma'am, I'll clean up my mess. I'm so sorry." That was exactly how Brandy would have acted. And she cleaned it up. And then she went and sat down with one dog, and she was trying to get her other dog up there to her, giving that dog the water.
Wow.
Please
go ahead, Jeremy.
I recently, probably a month or two ago, probably 2 or 3 months ago, spoke with the worker also. She'd reached out to me, just wanting to chat about it. And what was odd to me is that Brandy come in from the north side of 331. And how the lady knew that was, I guess they were swapping shifts, and there was somebody going home. And she said normally whenever somebody's leaving, like a worker, and they see somebody walking up, they call them stragglers, they'll call ahead to the person working and be like, "Hey, you got one coming in, just a heads up." And she said that's, when the other worker that was leaving called her and said, "Hey, you got one walking in from Oxside." To me, that's odd. because if you're walking from her dad's area and you take the road, you're not going to be coming in from the op side. You're going to be coming in from, the Florala side.
Okay. Did this worker think, man, this woman looks in trouble, maybe I need to call 911? Did she offer up any other kind of assistance? Or
no,
what?
She told me that she just looked like somebody who was having a really hard day. Not that she was in trouble or running for her life. She said that she looked like somebody who was going through something at the time.
Okay. And
needed a little help. So that's why she tried to help her with her injury. Brandy told her no, she was okay and she would be fine. Mm-hmm. And she offered her more water, and Brandy thanked her, and that was the extent of their interaction that day.
Okay. And I do believe that if Brandy was any kind of danger at that time, or if she ran into a problem or thought that her life was in danger at that moment, she would have been vocal about it.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's why, it's also odd.
So I guess what I'm saying here, they two obviously had an interaction, but there was nothing like Brandy said, well, I'm here because I had a fight with my dad. I'm here because I don't have any place to go. She didn't give an explanation for like the injury on her leg, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, and she wouldn't have. She wouldn't have burdened another person with all of that information.
Okay.
She's a private person for the most part.
Okay.
Unless there was a real reason, she wouldn't have said anything.
Okay. Right.
All right, and this worker, what directions does she say, or I think it's a she, the worker, what direction did Brandy go after their interaction? Back toward the father's house, or what? She
didn't see her leave. She was busy. I asked her that directly. Did you see her leave? Which way did she go? Because I ended up being probably a little bit more upset at the time than I really should have been, because it just kind of hit me that, she was right here close, and I know her and you know me. You should have called me, when she came in and she was hurt, if she didn't have a phone. But I once I calmed down, I realized, that didn't make sense to be angry about anyway. But she didn't see her leaving. She didn't see what direction she went. But I did end up finding out from someone else who messaged me after we put out some TikTok videos that did end up having an interaction with her, and she told me pointedly she watched her leave on the Florala side, that road that Jeremy just talked about that goes directly beside the rest area back to her dad's house. She told me she watched her leave with both of her dogs on the right side of that road in the wood line.
Okay. All right, and that was the last you saw her. The last this rest area worker saw her. All right, and once again, leaving with the dogs.
Yes.
Okay. Your understanding, once again, knowing that you weren't involved in this, has the area around this rest area been searched?
I did get a phone call from the rest area worker when they had come down there, and they were on ATVs and searching around the rest area. So I do know that search did take place. I think they went there twice, to my knowledge.
Okay. Jeremy, did you ever know Brandy to ever go to this rest area for any reason, whether walking or driving?
No.
No. Okay. Same for you, Amanda?
Same. I don't have any knowledge of her going there.
All right. Regarding phone info, of course, we heard that something happened to her phone. Is there any belief that she could have had another phone that day? Because, Amanda, in a private conversation, you told me that there might have been Wi-Fi at this rest area that maybe, you can use to do Wi-Fi calls like I do here in my condo. Any allegations or belief that she could have had another phone and tried calling someone from the rest area?
Or was it her dad, Amanda, that said she had her daughter's tablet, one of the twins' tablet with her?
That was a rumor. It was either a tablet or an old phone of one of her younger children that only worked on Wi-Fi. Her dad told me he believed she had it, but there's been no proof of that.
All right. Is that documented as being missing? Officially documented as being missing or not? Or?
We have no idea. We don't have any knowledge of what the police have listed as official or non-official. We're not privy to that information.
Okay. We know, as Jeremy stated, 2.03 miles from the father's house to the rest area. Nobody denies that she was there. She was caught on video. It is accepted as being the very day that we're talking about for this disappearance. Any witnesses, so car witnesses, anybody see her walking along the road that day, either direction, for either of you?
We only had
just that one that Amanda was saying.
We only had the one lady that had her dog in her vehicle. He was standing beside the road, beside the busy highway. She didn't want him to get run over, so she stopped and put him in her car, and she said it was just a few minutes before she heard someone screaming frantically a name, and she opened her door and she saw Brandy yelling. She thought she had lost her dog, and she told her she had the dog in her vehicle, and then Brandy left.
Okay. Regarding the dogs, she is still missing, but eventually both dogs came home?
Correct.
Jeremy? Okay. So they're out there 2 miles away. What kind of dogs are these? Are they mutts? Or are they dachshunds? Or what are they?
The white one was, I think it was a white English bulldog.
Okay.
And I do believe the brown one was a mix of something. Hell, I don't know.
Okay.
That one, Brandy, you never knew. If it had 4 legs and fur, she would, take care of it.
Okay. All right, so the
now
dog... Please, Amanda, please.
We got 2 different stories on the dogs.
Okay, tell them.
Her dad told me that Kilo, the white English bulldog, he didn't show up for 3 days after the day she left. And he said he came back half dead. He said the brown puppy, the mixed puppy, came back the same day. Now, month or 2 went by, and I called and got the stepmom on the phone, and I asked her to retell me the story and not to leave anything out. The stepmom told me that a pickup truck pulled up, dropped one dog off in the yard, took off, went down the road, turned around and came back and dropped the other one off. And that's how the dogs came back.
So you have an inconsistent story about how the dogs...
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Wow.
But her dad did tell me the first story about the dogs the same day, the same week. Mm-hmm. So it would have been closer to the time that she came up missing versus what the stepmom had to say, because we also got an inconsistency from her when we first found out Brandy was missing. We were told she did not have shoes with her. Now the stepmom says she did have a pair of shoes.
Can you tell in this video or the screenshot whether she's wearing shoes or not?
She had no shoes.
No shoes. No shoes. Okay. All right, so the dogs got home somehow. Inconsistent story there. Somehow. And nobody denies that they were at the rest area 2 miles away, but somehow they get home and Brandy is still missing. Given that there seems to be inconsistencies, at least with some of the adults that are talking for this disappearance, what have the children, I think were old enough to understand kind of what was going on here. For either one of you, what have the children stated the same thing? Yeah, mom left by herself and didn't come back, or what?
Well, I spoke to her twin daughter, and some of her days have run together, and I think that's just because there was so much fighting going on. She can't really isolate one fight from the other one. Mm-hmm. which is completely understandable. She's young and she's involved in a toxic environment as well. But from what she told me, that she absolutely remembers from the day Brandy left was she came into the living room part where she was at. She grabbed her purse. She also told me she saw her dump out a small briefcase of stuff and then put a notepad and a pen, and she said something else, but she can't remember what else she put in there. She closed it, and then she went to the door, and she told her daughter that she was sorry, she couldn't take it anymore, that she was probably going to go stay with a friend, and that she would see her soon, and she loved her, and then she left.
Okay. No stories from this particular child or the other one that she came back?
No.
How about you, Jeremy? That's the way you understand it? Would you like to add anything to that regarding the children, please?
Same.
Okay. And maybe I should just clarify. Of course, this disappearance, a year and a few months old. How old were these kids when this happened? The ones that are actually in the house at the time. How old are they?
Oh.
Sorry to put you both on the spot regarding that. Were they, obviously, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11?
10-ish maybe?
Yeah, 10 or 11.
They're 11 now, or they were 11 at the time?
I put 10 at the time, 11 now maybe.
Okay. So certainly old enough to understand human dynamics, and have a decent memory. We're not talking about 3-year-olds.
Correct.
Okay. Let's move on to this. Of course, this takes us back to this restraining order and all of this. What exactly was this issue, to go over this again? What was the problem, Jeremy? The way you understand it, what exactly was the problem between Brandy and her father and her stepmother? Why couldn't they? Did it have to do with the drugs, that she was an addict and she was tough to be around, or was it more than that? How would you analyze it?
Just toxic. Brandy didn't take no crap off nobody. Mm-hmm. And I think that Dad was, for the most part, try to be controlling, and there would be the issues there, and Brandy wouldn't allow it. And I do think that the addiction played a factor in it. A big factor in it, but to me, I think there's just too much alike, and then the controlling issues, with the dad, would just lead to ongoing, more problems and fussing. And Brandy wasn't one to put up with no smack. Wouldn't back down from anything. So, that was, it's like two bulls in a pen together.
Yeah. Okay. Amanda, same thing. Once again, to go over this again with you, this is something that was never going to be worked out, in your opinion. This is just the way it was. It does sound very dysfunctional, restraining orders, but allowing her to come back, and her coming back and then having to leave or going to jail. Sounds all very dysfunctional.
Oh, very. I don't think this is one of those things that would ever have changed unless you got a serious personality change. Mm-hmm. Me and Brandy have always had a saying that what connected us together is we're both too stupid to be scared. So she had this same attitude, fight anybody, even if it is the dad issue. The harder you would have come at her is she's going to match that energy, if not put more into it, and she's never afraid to throw hands, even with him. He was physical towards her. She's gotten physical towards him, and that went for pretty much anybody in her life. So unless one of them got a serious personality change, which I did not see happening, their relationship was going to stay toxic towards each other. There was never a time I saw them sit down and have a conversation about an issue to work it out. They were going to be in a fight.
All right.
And kind of little off topic, but that was the same way with her mother and
Right.
her brother that lived with her mother, was an alcoholic, was constantly, being physical fighting.
Okay.
She was always in a fight for, seems like everything, except for when she was with her friends, the ones
Right.
cared about her.
Okay. Now, where is her father now?
He died.
Somewhere, yeah, he died, and he's buried somewhere around here, I think. I don't know.
He's dead. So even though this disappearance is just a year and a few months old, he has died since then.
Right.
And I think you
Couple
told me.
months ago, 6 months ago.
Right.
Yeah. And it was cancer?
From my knowledge.
Yeah.
No funny business, anything like that. It's just accepted he had cancer, and that's what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So if, of course, as the listeners are getting the idea, maybe listening between the lines, could something of a foul play nature that was already violent and dysfunctional, did it even go further than that? That day, of course, he didn't let anybody know that she was missing for 2 weeks. She didn't come back. He didn't let anybody know. The listeners are, intuitive enough to read between the lines on all this. So if he did do something, he did know more than he admitted at the time. He is now deceased. The stepmother, I guess, is still alive. But I'm guessing she hasn't been questioned about this in a while.
No.
Hey, so back to the dad thing and foul play, you step back and you look at different stuff as time goes by, and every time you think about it, you think or you see something different that catches your eye. And I don't really think that he had anything foul play to do with it, because my personal opinion, if he left the house that day or in that time, I believe one of the young girl, the twin girl, would have said something to us, or Amanda, or hey, Paul left, or this, or Mama showed back up at home, or this or that happened, or so I thought about that, but I don't see that happening. Other people might have different opinions, but that's my opinion.
Okay.
About that.
Let's talk about other people. Of course, she's into drugs. She probably knows a lot of shady people, violent people, people who evade the law, have no problem breaking the law. In fact, both of you admitted maybe kind of just staying away from her because of this stuff. What about others? Any chance that one of these other people selling drugs to her or whatever they were doing could have encountered her that day? Any way that either of you could see that happen, Amanda?
Absolutely. Or I'm sorry.
That's all right. So absolutely. Okay, Jeremy, absolutely. Why is that? Please don't get into any name. Just your perception of this situation.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say no names.
Yeah.
And I don't have to say names because everybody around here knows, because these names has been brought up numerous times through everybody that we've talked to. It's the same two names, the same scenario, of something happening, that they done something to Brandy. But the problem is you can't put her anywhere physically or video or any kind of social media or anything past the rest area that day.
Mm.
But there's many people that we've talked to that has said, hey, she was here at so-and-so's house after the fact. We've seen her. We get rumors, and it's the same people, the same two people from the get-go, until you could ask it tomorrow, and it'd be the same two people that's getting brought up, 10 plus times, of different scenarios.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Amanda, on that topic, please?
I think it's absolutely possible. I just don't have any proof. And when you question the police about it, they will maintain that they're staying on that one day at that one place with no suspects because you see her on camera, and they have went through her social medias. They got warrants for all of that, and they don't have one message, say, in her Facebook Messenger that says, "Hey, come get me. I'm at the rest area." So because they don't have that,
right,
they're not just, saying we have multiple suspects. It's just the rest area. But do I think it's possible she either could have walked and met with someone? Of course it is. I mean, you have things like, let's just say she did have that tablet that works on Wi-Fi. You have Snapchat. You have several things that she could have used that maybe, they didn't find.
Right. Do either of these two people live near the rest area? Could she have walked to either one of to where they lived there? Do you know where they live? Is it possible?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite a ways, but it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Do you think these are two people that she would have gone to, given, being in a tight spot, doesn't want to go home or whatever? These are one of the two people that she would have leaned on or relied upon, looking for another place to stay?
She's been known to hang out with them in the past.
Okay.
Sure, I think so. We have seen some messages between them to where they admitted in the messages between each other they were picking her up, dropping her off, bringing her drugs. They were also drug users, so sure.
Okay. What have they, do you know what comments they have made, being that we can't, at the very least, they know Brandy. Have they made any, what these comments are? They've picking stuff up, picking her up, taking her different places. Have they ever voiced their own theories on what could have happened to her?
No.
To your knowledge?
Not at all. No.
If they have Facebook pages over there, I think Brandy did this. I think Brandy, this is what happened. Anything like that? There
was a mutual friend of ours that actually ended up going to one of their houses, and the only thing that he told her was that he would never hurt Brandy, but he had no idea where she was.
Okay.
The other one, as far as I know, has not made any statement. They both refused the polygraph, and when I tried to talk to one of them, he won't speak to me. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay. All right, so possibility. She could walk there, she needs a place. She doesn't want to go home. Of course, the weird part is that the dogs did go home. If she went to this other place, why didn't the dogs walk with her? Not sure. Okay. What about, of course, I guess she was breaking the law by being at her father's place. And is there a warrant out for her arrest? Could the police, be interested in the disappearance because of this? Any warrants out for her arrest? Or is this just a straightforward missing persons case right now?
As far as I know, it's just a missing persons. I don't think anything was ever filed or anything was done to the PFA charge or to break the PFA. I don't never think it got that far because they have to investigate it through Brandy and the father, in order to go further with that investigation on that part. But obviously she's missing, so you can't really look into it more on that part.
Okay. What is this area like? I've looked at it, and I'll probably do a video for YouTube and looking at this area, at least from satellite view. For both of you, being that you live there, let's just say that you walked off and there was no foul play and the elements got her that August. Let's just say. Describe this area between the house and the rest area. Very wooded, very open, a lot of different private yards and things. What can you say about that, Amanda?
As far as the area goes, it's very dense with woods. It's very rural.
Okay, so it would be tough to search, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yes, it would. It would be hard to search for someone who's trained. I mean, we've got a lot of snakes, we've got a lot of wildlife. It's dangerous terrain.
Yeah,
very harsh conditions.
Okay, and Jeremy, your insight into this?
It's a lot of hunting clubs. It's all hunting clubs. It's the old Benjamin area that runs up and down 331. There's a lot of dog hunting clubs. Really, I don't think there is a house between the rest area and the end of that road that you turn on to go to her father's. I want to say it's nothing but woods, hunting land, hunting property. And, you know, growing up, when it was the management area and it was public property, you know, growing up, me and Brandy and everybody and even Manda, we all run them roads, them dirt roads, and that's where we hung out a lot. So if she was to be walking down any of them hunting clubs, which now it's private land, logging companies have bought them out, but the roads are still there, and she's she's familiar with them roads down there. I don't see her getting off of a main road or a pig trail, you know, to cut through the actual woods. I believe if she did kind of try to cut through any of that she would have stayed on a main trail or a main road, you know, to get back to her dad if she got off the highway.
Right. Okay.
But it is very, very dense, very heavily wooded. I know they was at the time doing log work down the road that runs up beside the rest area. What is that, 18, Amanda? Is that what they call that? Is that County Road 18?
County Road.
There was doing some logging up down that road. Don't know exactly pinpoint the area, but I know that they was doing logging per some other people that I talked to. But, you know, it would be difficult to search without the proper search team, the proper dogs, you know, stuff like that.
Okay, so no, it doesn't sound like the easiest area. Of course, 2 miles doesn't sound like a lot of area, but, you know, if she could have gone in any direction. And like I said, if she ends up on private property, you have an owner that doesn't want anybody going on their property, you know, that makes things very, you know, kind of difficult. Okay, but maybe, you know, we have to be open to foul play as well, simply because of the circle she ran in. Okay.
And I don't think there's a house like the hunting land around the rest area is private property, but you could even pull up an aerial map. I don't think there's an actual house nowhere near the rest area until you get closer down towards the intersection you take, you know, to go to her dad's.
Okay. What's this been for for you two? You have a friend who is missing. It's been a year and some months. I'll start with you, Jeremy. You know what? I'm guessing you could have never predicted that you'd know somebody who went missing and was missing, you know, this long. What's the last year and some months been like for you?
It's been hard. Because we're best friends.
Yeah.
You know, I've gone through some stuff in my personal life. You know, I've gotten married. She wasn't there for that. You know, stuff with my daughter. You know, she loved my daughter. You know, my family. It's rough because I feel like we failed her. I feel like everybody's failed her, not in a bad way, you know, not throwing shade at nobody, but I feel like us close friends we've done everything that we can possibly do legally, you know, in our means to try to find her. But it's hard not knowing where your friend is. It's hard, you know, if she is out there somewhere, it's hard to know that she might be hurt or, you know, just what's going on. You know, she's vanished. She's a ghost. So, of course, your mind's going in a million different directions, you know, and then the holidays coming, and that makes it twice as bad. Facebook memories, pictures, going back and just looking at them, and, me and Amanda recently have been posting stuff from, 2010, 2008, stuff like that, old pictures and stuff, and it's just rough because we've always been, even though we've all grew up and have got our own life and kids and married and all that, we've always been best friends.
Yeah.
And now that's kind of, there's a rock in the road in this. There's a missing piece to our friendship, and it sucks, man. It really does.
Amanda, you're being friends with her. You stated 2019. You noticed things changing, getting into drugs and everything. Of course, anybody who's friends with somebody like knows that something bad could happen. At any time, an overdose or or something. Was it ever in your mind in those 5 years that she could go missing?
I'm sorry. 1 second. This is hard.
Yeah. It's okay.
No, you never think that a person that has been in your life for so long and means so much to you, you plan to grow old with them, and then they're gone, and you don't know where they are or if they're okay or if you need to be there to help them. It is the hardest thing that I've ever been through, to love somebody so much and you can't find them and you don't know what happened to them and you've been together for so long. And it is like a piece of you is missing. I think about her every day. I can't even enjoy things that I used to because I'll sit there and think, has she eaten today? Is she cold? She doesn't get to go out to a restaurant and sit down and have a drink. And so I'll feel bad because I'm enjoying my life and she's not here with me. It's the worst feeling because there's one thing I know above all else. If Jeremy was hurt or if he was missing or if I was hurt or missing, she would be the first one in line battling to get there to help us.
Yeah. Right.
I'm sorry.
You do not have to apologize. Please do not apologize. Totally understandable. As I've talked about on this podcast before, we just have to realize that doing drugs and having addictions, of course, having bad relationships with the family certainly raises the odds that somebody could go missing. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. The issue, though, is that still, even with those increased odds, most people who have those problems in their lives don't go missing. This is what makes this so overtly difficult, that even doing those things, having those problems, it doesn't make it like there's a 50% chance that somebody's going to go missing. The percent, I don't even know what the percentage would be, but it rises, but not overtly so. And so even with someone like Brandy who has problems that she shouldn't have had, the odds don't go up that considerably. And the issue, maybe the point I'm making here is, unfortunately, that most people like Brandy, or fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people like Brandy don't go missing. and don't overdose. And a lot of them do find their ways out of it. And, Brandy, unfortunately, is a horrible exception, at least for now. And of course, I hope she's still alive somewhere, of course. Do you have a Facebook page, website, anything like that set up for Brandy's disappearance? If so, either one of you can tell the listeners about it right now.
Amanda, you want me to?
Yeah, please.
We got a Facebook page. It's Brandy Crouch Home.
Okay.
Amanda, is there another one we did? Missing Brandy Crouch or something like that? I'd have to look. But it's an actual page, or it's a person page. Like, if it makes sense, it's not a group or a page. Somebody can send a friend request, or we can send one out. But we do share and post stuff on there all along. And I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
If Brandy can hear this, come home.
Yeah.
If you can't hear it and somebody else hears it and they know where she's at or knows what happened, we just want answers, and we'll go from there. We need to bring all this to a close. Don't be scared to step up and say something, man. And I know a lot of people's going to be like that, but put yourself in everybody else's shoes. What if it was you? There's kids involved in this. There's best friends. There's family. Because other than her kids, we're all she's got.
Yeah.
And if you know something, everybody knows how to get up with me. Everybody knows how to get up with Amanda. Reach out to us. Let's get this going. Let's get some results. Let's get some answers. Let's bring her home, man. And let's do it.
Amanda, do you have any final words to say before we complete this interview? Please.
Just that we appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate anybody tuning in and having any information or just prayers for her to come home.
Okay.
I know her oldest daughter went into the Navy. And I know that her mother would be so proud of her.
Wow.
And
right.
I do see her post stuff all along. And you can tell it bothers her a little bit. I see a lot of Brandy in her. Every time I see her post something about, the Navy or something. It just, Brandy's missing out on that. She just turned 20, I believe. 19 or 20, Amanda? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
19, 20? She's in the Navy, doing good things, fighting for our country. And Brandy's missing that. And that's how I know that there's something that's not right. It's because Brandy would not miss that.
All right. Jeremy and Amanda, thank you for appearing on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that was my December 15th, 2025 interview with Amanda and Jeremy, best friends of Brandy Crouch. I thank them both for joining me and all of you on this episode. I made a map video to show Brandy's father's house and the rest area and the distance in between. Please find it on Unfound's YouTube channel. I could discuss a lot in this summation, but I will limit my words to one subject: the police. Yes, they may be right that Brandy is not in the woods around the rest area or along the road between there and her father's. She could have gotten picked up. She could have walked off and be alive somewhere. I certainly hope that is true. She could have gone back to her father's house and something happened. Yes, all possible. But for the police to definitively say she's not in those woods is as good an illustration of what I mean by the police don't know what they're doing as any example that has ever been shown on this podcast. Yes, they may be right, but there is no reason for them to be so sure that they are right. Can you not feel the arrogance just dripping from that statement? This is a perfect example of the fallacy of we searched there, so the person isn't there. Seriously, surely, none of you would ever say anything like that after listening to Unfound for 9 years. We just have so many examples of bodies being found in areas that had been searched before. But let's be honest. The reason the police, at least in this disappearance, feel they can get away with a comment like that is because of the public's attitude toward people like Brandy. The police believe they can be dismissive and all-knowing without getting any crap for it. Whereas, if Brandy had been an 8-year-old girl who ran off, the public would expect everyone to search the woods once, twice, 100 times, despite each time being fruitless. Words from the police are chosen much more carefully when certain demographics are concerned. But this is the reason I counsel my guests that they'll have to do this stuff on their own. The police cannot be relied upon to stick with these types of disappearances for very long because their hearts just aren't in it. That's what family and friends are for. If you'd like to hear and read more of my in-depth analysis into the disappearance of Brandy Crouch, please go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Sign up and partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. And that's the program. I'm Ed Dunsel, and you've been listening to Unfound.